Editorial. William and Ayu did indeed share a very passionate evening together, but the details of that do not concern this archive at the present time. What does, however, is what was to come next. The morning after the banquet thrown by Hraffenfeld, a messenger arrived at the gates, one that Vikings never expected to see, but one with grave news, and though not a raider, they carried a Danax. The following is from Ayella's personal account of the events. As a warrior, I have trained myself to ignore fear, to fight on and die in the name of my people and the gods. But I confess that as the doors to our hall opened and a young warrior walked through, face masked and body cowled in the garb of the Myers' elite assassins, I felt my blood run cold. Shinobi, assassins that the Meyer dispatches for only its most dire of circumstances. I'd never seen one before, but I recall while on patrol one night I lay down for a rest, and when I awoke, 3 of our number were dead. The only evidence of their killer were shuriken-thrown stars embedded in one of them, and the remains of a smoke bomb commonly used by the samurai. A shinobi was never noticed until they wanted to be, and the fact that one would casually stroll into our hall without worry was disconcerting. But what she carried on her back was even more horrifying. My father was equally perturbed, I imagine, as he stared with disdain at her approach. I looked around for Warden William, but he was nowhere to be seen. I would have appreciated him being here too, but most of the knights were asleep now, worn out from the festivities, so I approached cautiously. "What do you seek here?" I asked. The shinobi dropped to one knee and bowed her head with solemn respect. "You may call me Mariko," she explained, "and I come with grave news for Knight Warden William of Akshire, and as well for Jarl Reynald of Hraffenfell." Her common tongue was excellent for a samurai. Father sighed and stood up.
"I'm not sure where the Knight Warden is at the moment, but I will hear your news all the same."
"With all due respect," Mariko answered, "this message is for both of your ears. I would share it with both of you at once."
Jarl Reynald sighed and shook his head before turning to me.
"Stir the knights, and inform them that their warden is needed at once. If you can find him, wake him up." "No need, sir."
I spun at the sound of the voice, recking it as Rodin, the Conqueror. He was walking in, smiling from ear to ear, but behind him, the faces were far more sullen and embarrassed. One was the Knight Warden William, helmet off and looking quite embarrassed, with a deep blush on his face. The other was, to my utter amazement, a Nobushi. She looked familiar, and I seemed to recall seeing her at the meeting at the Blue Citadel. She had been there with the daimyo of Amako, and she too was blushing, but holding the warden's hand smoothly. And I slowly fit the pieces together for myself. The idea that formulated was enough to make me smile too. However, the shinobi Mariko was not so happy to see her.
"Takamura-sama," she muttered. "I did not expect to see you here." "Mariko-san!" Ayu gasped. "Koko de nani de shiteru no?"
I didn't follow the question, but Mariko seemed to understand it as she turned back to the business at hand.
"I will be pleased to inform Mistress Nakano of your location. She has been searching for you."
This brought the smile out of Ayu's face very quickly. Mariko then turned to Warden William and to my father.
"My message comes directly from Mistress Nakano Tomoe of Amaku. Her forces have been forced to leave Akshire. Though they successfully repelled the orc attack on the city, they have received new orders. The Empire of the Mire is fallen." This news sent ripples of terror through the entire hall. My father's face went pale as he sank into his throne.
"Fallen? Then it is dead?"
"Not yet. The Emperor yet lives, but the Mire itself is overrun by the orcs. They have rallied into a massive army and are marching northward at a terrible pace. The Emperor's orders were for all daimyo available to rally their forces and assist in an evacuation of the citizens of the Mire into Ashfeldian lands. He hoped, since Nakano-sama gave her forces over to defend Akshire, then Akshire might be hospitable."
William nodded.
"Of course. We will take as many of the refugees as we can hold. You have my blessing. I'll put it in writing and send one of my own to deliver the message. They will want for nothing."
Mariko bowed her head low, and Ayu beamed at William. Your words are kind, and your hospitality is appreciated, noble Night Warden, she said. I shall inform the Emperor, but first I have more to say. She then unstrapped the Danac she'd been carrying on her back and held it out. My father stared at it for a long time, and suddenly he grimaced, biting his lips, his fingers trembling. No. On my way here, I came across the remains of a small band of Viking warriors, one of whom I remembered from the Blue Citadel meeting. You were there? I asked, surprised. I was silenced with a glare from Roden, who was now far more interested in the meaning of the axe. It shouldn't surprise me. Nakano probably had the shinobi on standby to report any information back to the Emperor once she'd heard it. But Father didn't seem to care as he walked down to the shinobi to take the axe. I'm afraid they came in contact with the Orc warband and did not survive. The Orcs had moved on and left. Little of them to identify remained.
I'm sorry, Jarl Reynald. This was Gunnar's.
At last I recognized the pattern, the odd markings on the axe head. The odd way it was chiseled. Of course it was Gunnar's. Gunnar's treasured helm splitter. How many knights had he decapitated with that very axe? How many Wulin had he crushed with it? How could I not have remembered it? Probably because the human eye often creates recognition through more obvious means. She likely learned to associate the axe with Gunnar, and seeing a shinobi with it probably took away some of the familiarity. It's nothing to be ashamed over. Reynald, William spoke up, walking away from Ayu to Father, who was now holding the axe as if a sacred treasure, his eyes brimming with unmistakable tears. I'm so sorry.
He was a foolish boy. So headstrong and stupid. Had all the sense and tact of a bull, he grimaced. When he left that night, I thought he might.
All were silent as my father took the axe and sat down with it. Gunnar was not his son, nor was he my brother. Gunnar had been like one to Father, though. He found favor with Father as a boy. He played with myself and Yelda when we were children. It had even been Father who granted him the title of Raider. The hall remained silent, until finally Jarl Reynald, my father, breathed.
I've grown too old for such loss, he muttered.
His eyes then fell on the shinobi.
Where are the monsters headed?
According to our network, we have learned the Orcs seem on a trajectory for Mount Ignis, and if they continue on this path, they will reach the Great Ravine in 3 days, and then after crossing it, Mount Ignis will be only a day's march away.
What do they want at the volcano? Roden asked. Whatever it is, it can't be good, William growled back.
Editorial. Actually, if I had to wager a guess, the Orcs were probably attempting to spread their fungal spores farther through the volcanic smoke. Mount Ignis releases regular volcanic ash and smoke into the air regularly, and these clouds can carry for miles in all directions. It is likely the goal of the Horde to take control of the volcano and use it as a means of carrying their spores around Heathmoor at a faster rate. How they developed the intelligence to create such a plan is beyond me, though I imagine it was likely the idea of a war boss, or perhaps a weird boy or two. Well, that, or they just thought the volcano looked cool, and they wanted to capture the strongest-looking spot in the land. It's a silly reason, but understanding the mind of a greenskin is quite like trying to understand the ruinous powers. You may start to unravel some of their machinations in time, but you'll only walk away feeling more confused than before.
Then we must slow them down, Roden argued. Agreed, William replied. But it will take time, and my men are injured. Then I will go, Father snarled. He rose to his feet, knuckles white as he held the axe in his hand. Those savages will pay for their barbarism. His eyes fell on me. Wake your sister. Wake all the wolves of Hrafenfeld. We will ride for the Great Ravine.
Do not underestimate their numbers, Jarl Reynald, Mariko warned. They are many.
I have no intention of destroying them all, or being destroyed by them, Reynold answered. But if I can buy time for our forces to mount a defense, that will be enough. I will simply destroy the bridge to cross the ravine. Without a way across, the orcs will have to take the long way around to reach the volcano.
William moved quickly to Father's side.
Reynold, you don't have to do this alone, he offered. I will go with you. I can bring Roden and we'll... No, William, Father argued back. You must return to Akshar at once. Return to Ashfeld. Gather your knight legions and prepare to defend Mount Ignis, as you have done for centuries before. Is that volcano not precious to the knights? I have no love of it, William growled. But if your goal is to ride to meet that menace with only a handful of souls, I have no intention to die like a dog. Father spat. He then turned to William and placed his hands on William's shoulders. Go, brother. Rally the legions of Ashfeld. Help the refugees of the samurai. Reach out to the blue dragons if you can. Do all you must to defend that damned mountain of fire. And I will reroute the monsters right to you. Then I'll regroup with you and join in the defense.
William smiled and took my father's shoulders as well, nodding.
I will. Come back to us safely, Jarl Frauenfeld. He grinned and then turned to Roden. Get the men ready to move. Those who cannot ride, put them on a wagon. We leave midday. At once, sir,
Roden acknowledged, running to go and wake the knights. The shinobi Mariko then turned to Ayu. The two began speaking rapidly in their strange language that I would never understand, but based on what I could gather, Mariko was not happy with what Ayu had to say. The shinobi snorted and turned her back on Ayu. Within moments, the halls were beginning to buzz with excitement. Knights were beginning to appear, sleepy but getting dressed, and I saw attendants of the hall and Viking warriors rising up as well. The shinobi seemed uncomfortable being seen by them. I will go then, she whispered, and inform Lady Nakano of your new obligations, she snarled. Give her my apologies as well, Ayu sighed. I will, but I do not know how she will feel about this course of action. The shinobi then ran out of the hall, silent as a ghost. Father, in all of this, had not moved, merely holding the axe in his hands and staring at it through mournful eyes. As the hall filled with bodies and was shouting, armor rattling and boots marching, I approached my father and placed a concerned hand on his arm. Father, I whispered, are you well?
He was a stupid boy, but I loved Gunnar.
He made his choice, Father.
And now I will make mine, he growled. Go, Aella, get the horses. Let's ride as soon as we are able. There is no time to waste. Raffenfeld must destroy the bridge across the ravine. I don't know what those animals want at the volcano, but on Gunnar's honor, on Night Warden William's honor, on my honor, those beasts will not set one foot on that ashen rock.